Lizzie Halliday was known for her extremely violent temper, leading to her being at odds with her own family. Her adult life was very tumultuous as she married 6 times. 2 of her husbands suddenly died and 2 had mysteriously disappeared. She left a trail of murder and chaos everywhere she went. Lizzie wreaked havoc in the eastern United States in the late 19th century, as the New York Times called her the worst woman on earth. Welcome to History's Biggest Villains. Lizzie was born Elizabeth Margaret McNally in 1859 in County Antrim, Ireland. She was around 5 years old when she immigrated with her parents and 9 siblings across the Atlantic to America. They settled in New York City. As she grew up, she developed a fearsome reputation. Her violent temper was well known and feared on the city streets, but it would cause her to be at odds with her family. McNally left home as a teenager after numerous physical altercations with family members. In 1879, she married Charles Hopkins in Pennsylvania. The couple had a son, but by 1881, Hopkins had suddenly died and McNally was a widow. Pretty soon after her first husband's death, she went on to marry an elderly man named Artemus Brewer. Just months after the wedding, Artemus suddenly died. Elizabeth quickly moved on to her third husband, a man named Hiram Parkinson. Weeks after the marriage, he left Elizabeth and never returned. Elizabeth married for a 4th time after she met Civil War veteran George Smith. A few months into the marriage, she tried to spike George's tea with arsenic. George survived this encounter, but before he left the hospital, Elizabeth fled along with all of his money. She later showed up in Vermont, marrying Charles Plaisdell, but then disappearing 2 weeks into the marriage. In the winter of 1888, she showed up in Philadelphia, befriending the McQuillans, an Irish immigrant family. She would live with the family for a period of time. Using the money she scammed from her several ex-husbands, she set up a shop, which she later burned down in an attempt to collect insurance money. On March 14, 1888, she was convicted of arson and sentenced to 2 years at the Eastern State Penitentiary. During her prison stint, her son was sent to a juvenile institution, where he apparently had the same violent traits as his mother. After her release, she changed her name to Lizzie Brown, finding a job as a housekeeper for widower Paul Halliday, who lived on a farm in upstate New York. In 1890, they got married, and Lizzie Brown became Lizzie Halliday. In May 6, 1891, Lizzie burned down a section of the family home. A few weeks later, she burned down one of the large barns on the farm. She then drove all of Paul's workhorses into town and sold them. Lizzie frequently lashed out at Paul's older sons and threatened to kill Paul on several occasions. In 1893, Lizzie burned down the family home again, this time with Paul's mentally disabled son John still inside. John did not survive the fire. She was suspected of setting the fire since she was known to have disliked John. She claimed that he died trying to save her from the flames, but his locked bedroom door was discovered in the rubble. Lizzie was arrested, but she was deemed insane and sent to an asylum. She was only institutionalized for a few years before she was declared cured and released back into the Halliday home. Yes, you burned a child in a fire, but you're cured? Okay. That August, Paul mysteriously disappeared. As Lizzie told her neighbors, he had gone to a nearby town to do masonry work. The neighbors knew her history of violence, and now with Paul's disappearance, they suspected something was wrong and called the police. On September 4th, with a search warrant in hand, Sullivan County Police went searching the farm for Mr. Halliday, but instead, they found Margaret and Sarah McQuillan buried underneath hay in one of the barns. Both of the girls had been shot with a .32 caliber pistol. A few days later, the police were called to investigate a foul odor from beneath the floorboards of the Halliday home. There, they found the dead body of Paul. Paul was also shot, but his body was horrifically mutilated as well. Lizzie was arrested and questioned, but she spoke gibberish and tore off her clothes. Many considered it an act of faking insanity, while others were of the opinion that she was really mentally unstable. While in jail, she refused to eat or talk. She tried to slit her throat with broken glass and set fire to her bed. She attacked the sheriff's wife and even tried to hang herself. Lizzie had to be restrained 24 hours a day by chains to the ground in her cell. The media had a field day with the mad murdering Irish woman called Lizzie Halliday. Some tabloids claimed that she had killed people in Belfast before arriving in the United States, but that claim was false. Some tabloids even made claims that she had connections to Jack the Ripper, a claim that was also false. The New York World portrayed Lizzie's case as unprecedented and almost without parallel in the annals of crime. The revelation that she had been married 5 times before she met Paul Halliday, that 2 of her husbands had died less than a year after their weddings, and that she had tried to poison a 3rd, led the press to speculate that she was responsible for at least 6 deaths. Whether these men died natural deaths or were murdered is not known. The New York Times noted in June 1894. On June 21, 1894, after a trial that attracted swarms of media from around the world, Lizzie was convicted of the murders of Margaret and Sarah McQuillan at Sullivan County Courthouse and sentenced to death by electric chair. Upon hearing the verdict, she lunged at Sheriff Harrison Beecher and bit his hand. The sheriff's hand and arm later got infected, leading to him having to get them amputated. Lizzie was the first woman ever to be sentenced to death by electrocution. After her sentence was handed down, the media response caused New York Governor Roswell Flower to commute her sentence to life in a mental institution. Halliday was sent to the Magdalen State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, where she spent the rest of her life. She became a model patient and was trusted with sewing privileges, giving her access to sharp instruments. She grew close to Nellie Wicks, one of the attendants at the facility, but Lizzie was deeply upset with Nellie's plans to leave the institution to train as a nurse. In 1906, Lizzie cornered Nellie in a locked room, stabbing her 200 times with a pair of scissors. When asked why she killed again, Halliday reportedly said, "She tried to leave me." Halliday died of Bright's disease on June 28, 1918, after spending nearly half her life in the asylum. My biggest thing is, she burns down a home with a child in it, and they let her out because they feel like she's cured. This woman has a history of arson, and she kills a child in a fire, and you're like, oh, well, she's cured, let me get her out. I also feel like during this time, there wasn't really the biggest grasp on mental illness. Some of these people were just not used to seeing crime like this, especially from a woman, so they just thought she was just insane. I mean, she was mentally insane, but she still knew what she was doing. I feel like she definitely knew what she was doing. There's something seriously wrong with this woman. And then she kills a nurse for wanting to leave? Like, that is insane. Like, where was the supervision? If she was able to corner a nurse and stab her all these times, I don't even understand, man. I don't. Hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to turn on my post notifications if you haven't already. Thank you so much. Have a great day. I'm out. Peace.